video, we are going to study about investment decisions. But before that, let's have a quick recap. In our previous video, we have studied about a small introduction which explains about the financing decisions. That the decisions are of three types: investment decision, financing decision, and dividend decisions. These three decisions have some factors which even affect them. That we'll be discussing later on. So starting up with the first decision, that is investment decisions. Now, what is investment decisions? When we talk about the investment, that is to run the business smoothly, every organization requires some sort of fund, some sort of investment, whether that investment is happening in the current assets or whether that investment is happening in the fixed assets. To run the business smoothly, the funds investment is required, right? To pay the bills, to pay the rent, salary, even maintenance of stock, buying new raw materials, buying new machineries, updating and upgrading them. For every single big to small activity, funds are required. So the investment in those activity has to be done in a very analytical way, so that the refunds should be fruitful, right? If the organization, if the finance manager is not going to calculate the feedback, is not going to calculate the project properly, his inappropriate decisions regarding the financial decision can prove to be disasters for the organization, which can lead towards a lot of risks and losses. So here we need to see that what financial decision is exactly, and we are going to understand this with the help of a statement which says that it reflects as to how the firm's funds. Now, what is firm's fund? The firm gets the funds by the help of two ways: owner's fund and borrower's fund. These are the two terms which you are already aware of. We have studied about this in the previous videos and in class 11th also, that borrower's fund are the ones which the company borrow and takes from others. It can be savings of the investors, of the shareholders, which by the help of which they are buying the shares. And owner's fund can be the equity, it can be the retained profit, the company's own fund, right? So when these funds, the firm's funds, whether it is a borrowed fund or whether it is a owner's fund, when these funds have been invested, so that money, when it is getting invested in the different assets, whether that asset is a current or whether that asset is a fixed assets, analyzing it properly and then investing it is one of the decision taken by the finance manager, and we call that decision as investment decision. So the decision has to be very analytical. It has to be done after so much of analysis, after so much of calculation, to see that there is no risk, the returns policy are superb, the money is not getting blocked at one point, the inflow and the outflow of the cash in the organization is very frequent, that there is absolutely liquidity of the money, of the funds which is taking place in the organization, then definitely this decision will be very appropriate, which will be taken by the finance manager. Now we are going to understand the types of investment decisions. The types are of two. One is done for the short-term investment and one is done for the long-term investment. Each short and long has been explained with the help of one more term. When the funds are getting invested in the short-term investment, usually we consider this, we connect this with the current assets, because current assets converts into cash very quickly, right? So when the investment has been done in the short term, that particular decision is also called as working capital, because working capital is a capital which is required for the day-to-day activities. For everyday activities, the money which is being spent by the organization, we call that money, we call that capital as working capital. But when the funds are getting invested for a longer duration, right, more than 1 year. Then, and again we are connecting with this long term investment with the fixed assets, because fixed assets are the assets which are not being purchased and sold every year or very frequently. If it has been purchased by the organization is going to use it for many years. So the money is getting blocked, the money is getting invested in particular asset for a long. So when that investment has been done for a long term, this type of decision is called as capital budgeting decision. Please don't forget to remember the different names which is given for the short and long term investment. So now we are going to study this particular decision in detail. What are the factors which affect this decision when the finance manager is going to apply the decision, is going to invest the money for long term? What are the points which he has to keep in mind while before doing any kind of investment, before taking any kind of decision? You must be thinking, why are we not going to discuss this? Definitely we are going to discuss this in the upcoming next video, because working capital also has certain factors which affect its working. So that will be discussed in the upcoming videos later on with some more topics. Meanwhile, we are going to discuss the capital budgeting, which is also done for the long-term investment. Now, here are the 4 criteria, 4 decisions, 4 points which affects the working of the organization if the money is getting invested for a longer duration. Number 1 is cash flow of the project. Now, at the time when the finance manager has decided to invest in any project, before taking that decision, definitely the finance manager has analyzed that project very deeply. He has he has done all the calculations. He has checked all the parameters. He has seen all the drawbacks and risks factors which may occur. He has even seen that what is the return which is going to come after doing this investment. If the organization is having enough funds with them, then definitely the investment will be less. But if the organization is not having much funds with them, then the investment is going to be more. Then when we talk about the cash flow is of 2 types, inflow and outflow. If the inflow is more, inflow means when the funds are coming too much with the organization, definitely the investment decision is going to be stronger and it's going to be for a longer duration. But if the inflow of the cash is not that frequent, the organization, the finance manager needs to keep that factor in mind. Need to keep that factor in mind and then take a wise decision of investing in any project. Next one is rate of return. Rate of return is also called by return on investment. That what is the return coming after the investment? Even that will be calculated very properly by the finance manager to make sure that the investment is not getting into vain. It is not getting wasted in any way when the returns are not going to be appropriate. So the investment decision is such a crucial decision which has to be taken by the finance manager, because this particular decision can bring the growth and prosperity to the organization. But if it is irreversible, if it is not taking place properly, definitely it will be creating a lot of loss and risk to the organization. Because after taking this decision, when the investment has been done, it cannot be reversed, it cannot be taken back. Because if the finance manager will stop the decision over there, will stop the investment. Now imagining starting any work and just ending it up in the mid, where the result is still awaited. So the half invested money has gone absolutely in waste without any result. The other resources which got involved has got absolutely into waste without any recovery. So the decision has to be so prompt that the organization or the finance manager must not regret later on. Fine. The next one we have is the investment criteria. Now, what is going to be the investment criteria? That is also important, which is being done after calculating all the techniques, all the methods of investment. There is a ratio analysis method. There are many other methods through which the finance manager checks that how the investment is going to be done. Is it going to be invested completely in one go, or whether they are going to invest it in small parts? How at what time they will be investing it, when the refunds will start coming, how are they going to use that refunds with the invested amount. So these all things will be calculated in this particular point very promptly. And the last one is risk criteria. This is the most important point which needs to be kept in mind, because risk cannot be avoided. If the risk has been ignored, then definitely it will bring a loss to the organization. So what are the risk factors which may arise with the span of time needs to be calculated again beforehand by the finance manager to make sure that the things fall on its place and the maximum refunds, maximum returns are getting generated, so that the organization becomes financially very strong and its working gets smoother with the passing year. In our next video, we are going to take up with the next decision.